Welcome to Pitch It To Me podcast, a show about the subjective past, present, and potential future of flesh and blood design. Farkas those sniffles, so you get to have me today. Today's episode will be about Briar, Warden of Thorns, and her upcoming retirement. On Red Pitch, Joel will relive his harshest and most dramatic flesh and blood memories. On Yellow Pitch, Fuzzy will talk about his experiences playing Briar and her impact on the metagame as she leaves. On Blue Pitch, I, Han, will give my custom hero design that could replace Briar in the future. You can find us across all socials such as TikTok and Instagram at Pitch It To Me Podcast.
Today's episode, our co-host Clark Moore is unfortunately sick. It's not COVID, he's doing okay. He should recover soon, but his voice isn't quite able to record podcast today. So since he can't make it, I decided to call up our friend Han.
Hello.
Han V. He also is the same Han V who does the logo for our show. So if you're looking at our beautiful three little caricatures in the pitch symbol, that's Han V's doing. And he also has been helping us do our social media lately, which has been really nice. So he's more than just a friend. He's a big time contributor towards the project. Thank you, Han, for everything you've been doing. Are you excited to record today?
Hell yeah. Thanks for taking me on.
So down to business. Ding dong, the witch is dead. At the time of recording, week 1 of national season has concluded and Briar has won US Nats, which is a whole story in and of itself. But what that means is that on September 19th, she's due to rotate out of the format and ascend to the status of living legend. And we want to honor her legacy today by making this episode all about her and ending with our own custom design for an elemental runeblade that might be able to replace her in the future. Whether you've come to this episode to celebrate her leaving the format or to mourn her passing, hopefully you get something out of this episode and enjoy it. Let's get to it. Starting with Red Pitch, Joel, what have you got for us?
So it seems to me that everybody in our friend group has not played with the original Briar when she had like Ball Lightning and Plunderin and all that nonsense.
I think LSS literally printed the errata for her after I was playing for about a month.
Yeah, and it just pisses me off because now I'm like the only one who's afraid of Runeblades and what they can do, and like none of you understand on the same level.
I don't get it, man.
I mean, she's fine now, but you know.
I mean, I get it. I'm scared of Runeblades, but
it sucks too because like the only reason why she was like running rampant is because she didn't have like a lot of like natural predators. The only thing I can think of at the time is like Ice Lexi, but there wasn't Icelander. Oldhim was there, but even then, I think it was too hard with like the Sting of Sorcery and Ball Lightning. Like I don't know, Briar was still winning events, so it was you're either trying to dodge all the Lexis as you get to the top tables, or you just have to win like 8 mirrors a day to get to a top tables of an event.
Yeah, I've heard stories of how awful original Briar was. What with her ability to make a nigh infinite amount of embodiment of Earths, Ball Lightning, Plunder Run. Like she basically kicked 3 different cards out of the format, including her own hero ability.
Yeah, so a typical turn would be like, okay, you have a Plunder Run in Arsenal and then 1 in hand, right? So you play Plunder Run from Arsenal, give your next thing +3, and then you do a 0 for 4, something with nonsense, and go again. You hit, you draw a card, you get an embodiment, your first one, right? And then you play another one, give an embodiment of lightning to whatever needs it, and that like probably has arcane on it or something. So then your previous Ball Lightning would trigger off that. And so you're just stacking damage and stacking embodiments. So then on the following turn, assuming they did or did not block out, they probably took like 15 to 20 damage. And then you have like 5 or 6 embodiments. And so you block 1 Plunder Run to like block a crippling or a Spinal Crush or something. And then you just continue your turn with like 5 cards.
Wow, Joel, that sounds fun.
super hot. I mean, that sounds awful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Like, Prism was also around at this time, and that still wasn't enough. Think about that, too.
Okay, that's a good reference. But she also LL'd right around that time, so I never got to...
No, she LL'd after Starvo did.
Yeah, I feel like that was either right before ProQuest season or during it. Probably right before.
It was right before because I got to play against one Prism before she LL'd.
Mm-hmm. And it got so bad. Like, Plunder Run and Ball Lightning were issues in and of themselves. But the biggest issue was her hero ability just wasn't tuned to what they... Or I guess it wasn't even tuned. It's not fair to say that. Because of LSS's bandwidth at the time with COVID, they can't like test every single interaction.
Sure.
So releasing a powerful ability like this with like limitless potential, quite literally, it was just like kind of begging for disaster at that point. And it was so bad that it called for the very first errata of a hero ability.
Yeah.
And, you know, even though it was warranted, like this hero was a problem, a menace to society, it didn't bode well for like any hero that's like powerful from here on out, right? Because it really changes the way she was played. Like, you're not trying to... I mean, you could still be aggressive with it, but you don't... It's not nearly the same power level. And it becomes a slippery slope when cards that you play with don't resolve or don't do the things that it says on the card.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then where does it end from there? Thankfully, it hasn't happened since then, but I remember in the community, it was kind of like... People were like, yeah, that's smart, but like, damn, wasn't there anything else you could have done to make it like more playable? Because I think people liked, you know, being rewarded for being aggressive, but at the same time, yeah, it's tough to do that without some backlash from the community.
Yeah, her hero ability was really strong, and I think it's in a much better state now. You know, I think we all kind of probably wish that we could go back and say that the original Briar was printed the way it was now. That way, they never had to errata it. It always had the same text. But with this newer, more balanced version.
Do you think that Ball Lightning would have been equally bad if with this ability? It doesn't give her the ability to like stack a whole bunch of embodiment of Earths, but it's still a lot of damage that you're pushing across.
Yeah, because you'd still play things like Sting of Sorcery so that every Ball Lightning is doing an arcane +1 from Ball Lightning's effect.
Yeah.
So it would effectively be like a 0 for 6, right? 0 for 3 physical. With Go Again, it hits, it deals 1 extra. And then the arcane off of Sting, and then deals 1 extra. That's 6 total for 6 Go Again.
Yeah.
Like, that can still be an issue. But at least her defensive capabilities weren't as insane on the crackback.
So I wanted to go back to what you were saying, Joel, about errata and it being a slippery slope. I think there is definitely that fear. Like, if a hero ability is too strong, are they going to take it away from me? Like, how much of a foundation do I have here for my hero working the way that I plan on it working? And if my hero is too dominant, are they going to change my ability? I think Briar was really hard to balance as is, just because it did so much. Plus, like, cards not doing what they say they do is a really tricky thing to navigate in any card game, right? You'd hope that your physical cards are going to do what they say they do and they don't have an expiration date. But when you're opening first edition Tales of Aria, you're not playing with the hero that comes in that box, right?
Right. And I feel like it wasn't as big of an issue up until now, because Magic, think of how many erratas they release like in a year, right?
Sure.
And it's to make more things playable and not reduce the power of something. And they get to do that because, you know, they have like 30,000 plus cards to work through. Whereas Flesh and Blood, every card really matters. Like, we're still playing our commons and rares and relevant majestics, and they really hinge on the hero ability because it's like, that is the deck. We want to center it around that hero ability. And what I do like about what LSS has done to like steer away from this method of balancing is, I thought they were going to do something similar to Levia. They were, you know, thinking they were either going to errata her or make a new hero entirely, and instead they came up with Demi Hero. And that's a way of like changing the hero, but not really. It's sort of just like a failsafe for that particular hero, and I feel like they sort of did the same thing for Azalea in giving her a lot of new tools in Outsiders with just more powerful cards instead of trying to change her hero ability. Not that that was on the table, but because it can go either way. You can either nerf a hero or buff a hero through errating. And so there's no, like, once you start, there's really no telling how far you go before it's like, oh, I've made a grave mistake and really ruin the metagame this way.
Sure. And I feel like that reputation of errata really worked against Briar. Like, her hero got so bad, so unhealthy for the game, that they took away 2 of her key cards and changed her hero ability. And I've been playing Briar since January 2023, maybe December. And I've never played during that meta, but I hear about it all the time. Anytime I beat someone, right? They go, I'm so ready for Briar to Living Legend. And I'm like, bro, she's not that bad right now.
Yeah, it's that PTSD, man. It's
it's
so
that
real.
trauma
from
from people having to deal with the really amazing version of Briar that doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh, yeah. Meta slaves loved that one. That was a terrible meta to be a part of. And it is kind of sad, too, because with the errata, she lost a lot of her flavor, I feel. Like, with her new version of playstyle, it was like just 80% generics, and the rest would be your Earth Blues to pay for your Channel Mount Heroic. And it was just, and Channel Mount Heroic was buffing your other, which is fine, but it just seemed a little boring to me.
Sure.
Objectively strong, but very boring.
And I certainly enjoyed New Briar, but having one that's a little bit more elemental flavory feely would probably be kind of fun too. I don't know, maybe we'll even see a design like that in Han's section later when he comes up with our replacement.
No promises.
So adding on to that, Joel, I think if you look at all the talents, ice, earth, lightning, draconic, light, shadow, if the ones that have the most shallow design space right now, I would say are probably lightning and maybe draconic. Like draconic is still pretty cool. Lightning, if you're trying to like come up with new lightning cards, you're finding that like, okay, lightning does like 2 things. It has extra action points and extra damage on hit, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there aren't other effects in the game that really have like tacked on damage for the most part. Like maybe like Runeblade has like on hit make rune chance, which is kind of the same thing, but not really.
I guess Ranger's kind with Searing Shot kind.
That's true. Like Searing Shot effects, kind of like that.
You're talking about just like damage coming out of nowhere, right? Or
Not
like,
nowhere. It's like tacked onto your attacks. It's like
If this
not
hits-
a pump, like shock charmers, you know? And that's like Lightning's design space. But I feel like it's been cut off a little bit because of how Ball Lightning was banned. Suddenly we don't see that side of Lightning very much anymore. We just get like some extra on hits, and that's basically about it.
But that was the cool
I meant
side.
extra points.
Yeah, well, and I think it just goes with the philosophy of just maybe not a philosophy, but I've definitely noticed that they try to avoid just adding like straight up damage. Like for instance, Reckless Swing is a pretty toxic card because it's just 2 damage on your turn that you can't interact with
Okay, yeah.
unless you just like predict it and park an Oasis in Arsenal.
See, I feel like it's okay because you have to give 2 cards to make it work, you know? But
Right. And in other cases, like with Ball Lightning, just generating damage wherever you feel like it, just, you know, rearranging your hand on the board for like 20 damage plus is a little toxic. And I feel like that's why they've shied away from it. But if they found a way to make it a little bit more balanced, like maybe hinged off of like fusing itself or fusing and then on it or something like that, that would make it more, or give more, it would give more incentive to play these lightning cards.
yeah. And I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to say is in the future, I would be really curious to see what they add to the Lightning design space. Since this first wave of Lightning cards, it was kind of cool, but also was soured a bit by the Ball Lightning ban.
Yeah.
Ball Lightning,
yeah.
honestly, I think is a really cool design. The way that it stacks is engaging, and it makes you think, hey, could I just play a shit ton of Ball Lightnings and make a deck? And it turned out it was too strong.
There's a reason why Fuzzy's chaff collection has 0 Ball Lightnings in it, because I cut out every single Ball Lightning in the Tales of Aria drafts and usually do pretty well.
Yeah, whenever we play Tales of Aria draft, Han's at our kitchen table taking every single Ball Lightning, so that's why I don't have any in my collection.
Blame John. He passed me like 3. At that point, no one's touching them.
I agree with you, Fuzzy. I would like to see what they can come up with besides just extra action points and extra damage. You know, there's got to be some other keyword or some other like line of play that could make it interesting without breaking whatever hero comes out with it, or even worse, make Lexi better because of it.
It's such a shame because like that extra deals 1 damage is just so such a fun tool to play with as like a brewer. Like during ProQuest season, it was friggin' miserable playing against that Lexi, but the extra on hits from like when I learned about the interaction about the extra on hits from shock charmers, it was just super cool.
I wouldn't say cool, but I do agree that it's powerful, and yeah.
I mean, I did nothing that game, but it was cool.
I kind of feel like we could say the same thing about Earth. Like, it's not true that they had one of their coolest cards banned, but like Earth design space is just pumps and going tall. Yeah, that's barely a thing, you know? And then the recursion is cool. Like, I think Earth being able to put extra cards on the bottom of their deck and conserve library is like really cool, but I'd be interested to see what they do in the future in order to beef up that design space and expand on it.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen, I mean, you'll talk about it later, how absurd Crown of Seeds is and the damage prevention and the cycling, but I do agree, like, that could definitely use some additions to the design space. Okay, that's enough about the traumas that we suffered with Briar, the OG Briar. Fuzzy, can you tell us a bit about what happened to her during this latest Nat season?
Yeah, so a little bit of context. Briar, going into like ProQuest season back in January 2023, like 8 months ago, she had a reasonable shot of hitting Living Legend going into ProQuest season. Like, she was like, 100 points away? She was sitting at like 900. So if she won like 50 different ProQuests across the world, and she was a pretty good hero at the time, she could have LL'd. But she got like 68. Like, she got like a fairly good chunk. She got most of the way there, but not quite enough. Then she got another 30 at RTN season and put her at 998. So over the course of these like 5-6 months, she like had a chance at Living Legend, but decided not to. And there were like tales of Briar like winning events, but people throwing it in order to make sure she didn't get the points. But I also heard stories of people throwing it so that way she did get the points. So I feel like that all kind of balanced out. Who knows where the truth is? The whole community was getting really antsy because they really wanted Briar to leave. They wanted some action in their tiny, desperate lives.
Even in like the Road to Nationals for Cincy, I think someone put out like a bounty for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. That's so funny.
Yeah, I heard about one RTN where they had like 30 Briars because whoever was going to win, if they won with Briar, got an extra like $1,000 cash or something stupid.
And none of them freaking won?
I think they did.
Does that not contribute?
It did. That's how she got to 998.
I see. Okay. Maybe that's the play, not the bounty. Who knows?
So going into national season, if all you need is 2 points and there are 50, 60 different little events that could possibly get you points, she's bound to earn some points somewhere. Like, we pretty much knew that she had, again, a solid chance of hitting Living Legend during Nat season, and she did, boys.
And here's the thing, because she only won in US, right?
National season is still going on. We just finished week 1, and I think that was like the only event she won. But there's still 2 more weekends of Nats.
Oh, 2 more. Okay, because I was gonna say, like, if if Charles Dunn didn't LL her in this Nats, like, is she gonna LL anywhere else? But
I mean, that might be true. We might look back and say, well, this was the one event she got. It was the big one, and she didn't have to get the big one, but the big one's what she got, and it pushed her over the top.
At that point, there were rumblings of her winning in Australia, but...
She did not win in Australia.
Okay, so we don't have to feel bad about her LLing with the 100-point event. Yeah,
I personally would have been pretty happy to see Icelander get another couple 100 points.
Yeah. Couldn't hack it.
But that's okay.
I mean, I can't say anything. I'm not at the top table, so...
And I think part of the difficulty why we kept expecting to see Briar LL, but it took her this long, had to do with the fact that she's really balanced now. Like, it might feel weird for some of you to consider Briar to be a balanced hero because you've lived for so long, so much trauma, at Briar beating the snot out of you with ball lightnings or plunder runs. But that Briar's in the past. Now she just plays Channelment Heroic.
And I'm still traumatized. That's like 16, 16, yeah, let's call it 15 damage.
But in order to run Channelment Heroic, you have to run a bunch of Earth blues. You only run blues for Channelment Heroic, and then maybe Rune Chants sometimes. And they have to be Earth blues, which means it's not just like the best blues in the format, it's the Earth ones. Sometimes you don't even draw them at the right time, and you want to run lots of red attacks to take advantage of it. It's all a bunch of deck soup, and sometimes it works together and sometimes it doesn't.
Deck soup.
Briar is a very high variance hero because there's so many requirements you have in your deck. You want to run lots of non-attacks that don't work with Channelment Heroic. You want to run a bunch of red attacks that you can't pitch to turn Channelment Heroic on. If you draw all non-attacks in your hand, you can't really do any damage. And if you draw all attacks, maybe not all of them have go again, so you're not able to play all four. There's a lot going on in your deck. It's easy to have really awful hands, but you can also have some really, really amazing hands, like Force of Nature, that draws a card every time your attacks hit, and you come in for like 102 damage.
Per hit, yeah.
I mean, go off. I'm here for you. I love it.
I mean, Dash is consistent. Coming from the Dash perspective, I'm consistent, but you're still kicking my friggin' ass every time.
Well, Briar's still extremely explosive with, the help of Force of Nature and, buffing her entire turn.
Yeah.
Like, inevitably, a few turns with, like, 21 damage threatened is going to leak over and you're going to lose the value trade. So you just have to kind of hedge your bets and hope that you pop off before she does. Or have some disruption.
Definitely. And, that sort of variance is what led me to the hero in the first place, Back in January, she was kind of close to a living legend, but I was like, you know what? I like this hero. I'm going to put her together. And she was able to stick with me for a long time, or what felt like a long time. And now I feel like I've gotten what I wanted out of the hero. I remember sitting at Nat season thinking, I am ready to stop playing Briar, regardless of if she hits living legend. And luckily she hit living legend, so I can feel like it's not my decision. I'm not abandoning her. But we'll see what the future holds. I've been playing like only Briar for so long. We'll see what hero I pick up next. Honestly, I've been thinking Bolton, Joel.
Stop teasing him.
No. Anybody that tells me that, like, because like being the resident like Bolton / Levia main, everyone's like, "Oh, Joel, guess what? I'm gonna play Bolton," and my reaction every time is just fucking don't put the time into it. It's just not the time right now.
But it's not expensive to put together.
No, that's not the argument.
What will it cost me? What will it cost me to put together a Bolton deck and bring it to a few armories?
What you're not paying in money to build a deck, you're paying an opportunity cost for armories one.
Let's talk about how Briar won Nats. Briar is traditionally an aggro deck that revolves around, and by traditionally I mean the last 6 months, right? Before all the bans an eternity ago, a year ago. Briar nowadays, the norm is to run Channelment Heroic, a bunch of Earth Blues to turn Channelment Heroic on, a bunch of zero cost attacks to get value out of Channelment Heroic, hopefully with Go Again, Snapdragon Scalers to fix it sometimes, and try to overpower your opponent by drawing Channelment Heroic. But the Briar that won is not that Briar. This was a fatigue list that centers around lots of non-attacks that normally block for 3, 4 if you have a embodiment of Earth. And having at least 50% of your deck blocking for 4 is a lot of block value. Would you guys agree? Like,
Kinda.
lots of fatigue decks like Oldhim, right? How many cards that did Oldhim have that would block for more than 3?
Probably just your defense reactions.
Yeah, maybe like
6.
12 cards.
So no, there's
I would say 6. At least actually no. I would run blue and red staunches and 3 sinks. So yeah, like 9 cards.
Having a half your deck block for 4, again with no resource cost, as long as you can connect in, is a lot of block value. And the fact that there were so many blues puts this fatigue Briar at a good position against like Icelander and Kano. Plus, we just got Dyadic Carapace recently, which gives us an extra AB2, something that Runeblades did not have access to before. Plus the extra block value there. And this Briar build revolved around playing like 3 for 7s that are hard to block completely. that are really good at guaranteeing those embodiment of Earths. And if you don't get the embodiment of Earth, you still have cards that block for 3. It's not like you lose out on all your blocking potential.
Yeah, it almost seems like the embodiment Earth is like a mini game that your opponent has to play. Like, okay, I could take 7 and my turn sucks, or I can like try to block it out.
Oh, and you don't want to block as a Lexi.
Exactly, right. So you're probably just like, okay,
It's
I'll just take
lose-lose,
it.
yeah.
Right. And then you're 1 for 5 arrows. The block 4 non-attacks and Crown of Seeds, you eat up one of those arrows of that on hit.
Yeah.
And some of them are really relevant, like Heat Seeker and Infecting Shot. Like Infecting Shot being 1 for 7, and same with Heart Seeker, like getting that extra card. Denying that for Lexi is huge.
Or, yeah.
And one of Briar's strongest assets is her Rosetta Thorn, right? That's what everybody groans at when they're facing a Briar.
I'm groaning now.
But this Fatigue Briar was not even running Rosetta Thorn. They're running Reaping Blade, which is the 1 for 3, which is just, if you're not planning on playing non-attacks much, a 1 for 3 is really solid value, and it's hard to block out 3 damage without giving up a card. So being able to pitch 1 to get your opponent to lose a card, it's the Fatigue plan. It works. And I just think it's so cool that we had this avant-garde deck win a major tournament. US Nationals was won by this random deck that people had heard of before, but nobody was really believing in as having top-tier potential. And in the middle of this meta with Lexi and Icelander and Bravo and Dromai being really dominant, here we have an answer. Arise out of the mist. And then leave, because now we can't even like enjoy the next 3 months of Fatigue Briar answering the Lexi Dromai meta. So,
and I was just thinking at Nats, or before Nats, I was like, man, is there a way to fatigue her? Like, I've seen Bravos on stream lose to her, even though they run like a lot of 3 blocks, a lot of D-reacts, a lot of extra life gain. And then Briar just comes out from the freaking top rope, takes down Nats, and then like, oh, now like the rest of us can't. It kind of feels like
I'm done.
yeah, no, someone getting like the last hit on your kill, and then leaving.
Yeah, she kind of just like swooped in there and like smoke bombed out. Like peace.
Yeah.
And then now we're left with the same question again. It's like, who can deal with Lexi now? Because Briar leaving doesn't do anything for the meta. Like, she just got her win, left, and then it doesn't change like any sideboard slots of any heroes. It's like we still have to deal with Lexi, Dromai, and Icelander.
Yeah, I'm just on my knees praying that Bright Lights brings us a friggin' control mech that can tank enough damage to stop this.
Even I would bring myself to that low of a level and play mech to beat Lexi. At this point, I'm just tired, man.
Although you'd lose to Dromai, though, at least historically.
Oh, that's true.
Like, Boost Dash loses to Dromai. Pistol Dash loses to Dromai. Who knows what the future will bring for Bright Lights?
You can't steal Evos, though.
Maybe some poppers.
That's
or
true.
poppers.
You
and
can't
Dromai,
steal Evos.
Kyloria can't steal Evos.
Actually, yeah, there are a lot of really good poppers in Bright Light. So I'm really excited to see what Briar looks like in the future. Han, can you go into your design and tell us what you think it should be or will be, or what you're coping for?
Yeah, what you got, Han?
Yeah, so when we were talking about Briar being kind of bland, it's because I also never lived through the Ball Lightning era. I've only just heard about it in Tales of Yore. And because you're old as a hell, Joel.
Thanks.
I wanted to build a hero that focuses on fusion.
Okay.
And that's also because I never got to live through Briar or Bravo Star of the Show. So yeah, I don't know. I'm like that DW meme. Like, both of you just assume I can read that. I don't know what that says. I don't know what you mean. So Joel was hitting me with a newspaper when I showed him my initial.
I was trying so hard to be respectful to your creative process, but I'm like, please stop designing Starvo.
I am an aggro player at heart. And I just want to make the most busted and thing. And you have to, it's your job to reel me back because I'm not stopping for anyone. I'm not showing restraint. Who is that? But the design I came up with is Casper, Gem of the Wildwood.
Okay.
I was thinking more like, like Briar's already like really like has that like force of nature feel. She's friggin', she'll mess you up. You run into her and you're like, yeah, I don't want to mess with her. And I want to, build a character that's a little more like a methodical, like a trapper, like who can commune with nature like Briar does, but it's in a different interaction. I want someone that's deliberate and efficient.
Okay.
The hero I created is named Casper, Gem of the Wildwood. He is an elemental runeblade with the usual add-ons, and he is a fuse-centric hero. When you fuse an earth card, you may pay 1 and discard a card. If there's an earth card in your pitch zone, put 2 target cards from your graveyard to the bottom of your library.
Okay.
And the second line of text is when you fuse a lightning card, you may pay 1 resource. If there's a lightning card in your pitch zone, the next time an attack action card you control hits a hero, it deals 1 damage to them. I want to go for the 2 lines of text to kind of mirror Briar and give you options. Because I feel like sometimes Briar's just like, yeah, I'll take all of them. And since there's like a fuse wall to get over, this is really like a choice for your hero to make.
Yeah, that was something I struggled with playing with Briar as well. Like you were always like sort of pigeonholed into one design or the other. When ball lightning was a thing, you'd play lightning only, and then afterwards, you would only play earth because you had the best value. You didn't really have a lot of good lightning cards to take advantage of. So I like this mirror design, but making both designs like worth the whole 80 being centered around lightning or earth.
I want to look at these abilities a little bit more closely for a second. First one is when you fuse an earth card, you may pay a resource and discard a card. If there's an earth card in your pitch zone, put 2 target cards from your graveyard to the bottom of your library. So we haven't really seen that payoff before of put 2 target cards from your graveyard to the bottom. We've had cards like So Tomorrow or Evergreen like put a card to the bottom. So that way they're card neutral. And those have had some really like powerful benefits. Like that's how you get around fatigue if you're going up against like Oldhim or like Rites of Replenishment can actually put 2 cards from your graveyard to the bottom if you both fuse it and have dealt Arcane that turn.
Yeah, so not having to deal with the Arcane makes it a little bit harder to interact with as your opponent.
That's true.
So I'm wondering if you can like ever be fatigued outside of just them having like a blowout turn, so you can't have, or a discard or Frostbite, so that you can't get this ability off with a card in hand to discard and then get 2 other cards back into your deck.
Imagine like what do you think? How many times do you think this ability can resolve to fatigue your opponent?
That is an interesting question.
Because in fatigue matchups, what I've often heard is the like baseline is that it doesn't matter what your life total is, it matters what the deck size is.
Yeah.
So if this is going card neutral every turn and threatening damage on an attack.
Yeah, like let's say you pitch a blue to play Entwine Earth, which is a 2 for 6 that when you fuse it gets an extra +2. So that's 2 resources to come in for 8, fused with a card in hand. You've pitched a card, you've played a card, fused with a card. You can then pay a resource, like your 3rd floating resource, and discard the card that you just fused with. That's a 3-card hand that allows you to put 2 cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library, and you've only lost 2 cards out of your deck. So you're coming in for 8 without actually losing deck size.
But if you think about it, if you're keeping a 3-card hand, a lot of the earth cards or elemental cards also only have 2 blocks. So you're blocking 2 to 3 with that 4th card, and you're taking a lot of damage to pull this off.
Yeah, there's no way to get embodiments of Earth here, which are Briar's biggest like ways of keeping up her life total. So I could see this kind of being too strong. I could see it being something that doesn't affect most games, and I'd be really interested in playing with it. I can see what you're saying, Joel, about this potentially being too strong, especially because those cards can be cards that synergize really well together. Like put 2 target cards on the bottom of your library. Let's grab Channel Mount Heroic and an Earth Blue and just line yourself up for the next turn.
Or not even the next turn, but essentially you're grabbing, or you could grab a blue and then another card plus the Earth Blue that you pitched for the attack in the first place.
It's like build your own loop.
Yeah, exactly. You just kind of guarantee what you have in the late game, which would be interesting and rewards a lot of play, but how cancerous is that going to be to play against? Because, Drone of Brutality doesn't exist for similar reasons.
Sure.
I guess if that's the mindset, like, let's say you do get Channel Mount Heroic and a blue Earth, there's nothing saying that you have to keep holding up things to try this again. You only need to maybe resolve it once and then block out 4s theoretically, until you find it again, or until you find the 2 cards that you recurred. That could I guess I can see a world where that's like,
Or like recurring your Anthem of Springs. I guess this is not a Briar hero, so they would not have access to Anthem of Spring. But if Briar could return 2 cards at the same time, it'd be 2 Anthem of Springs and then blocking for 8. I think this design is really cool, and I would be interested in playing with it. I'm not sure if it's balanced. I don't think I care right now. Let me play with Elemental Runeblade, something new.
I certainly don't think it's balanced. The lightning part is probably the most balanced because you're just adding a damage off of it, an on hit, so it just rewards like aggressive play. And
yeah, when you fuse a lightning card, you may pay a resource. If there's a lightning card in your pitch zone, the next time an attack action card you control hits a hero this turn, it deals 1 damage to them. It kind of reminds me of Viserai, who gets 1 free damage tacked onto every card other than the first non-attack that you play. But you have to pay a resource for it, and you have to fuse. So you're not going to be doing this every turn, maybe. Maybe you will. Maybe you're focusing a lot on this lightning build, being able to get free damage. Oh, the next time an attack action card you control hits a hero. So it doesn't have to be the card that you fused. It's just this looming on hit. Okay, I kind of like that. That seems fair. I'm willing to pay a resource to have an on hit that'll come in whenever it needs to at the end.
and like I said, the most compelling part of Lightning was when I encountered Lexi with that shock charmer ability, and I just love it. Give me that on a stick. I'll take it.
I like that as an aggro ability. Looming pressure. You cannot block out all of my attacks, so I will get this value somewhere.
I mean, if you block out my attack, yeah, block 2 for 4. That's a good trade for me too.
I like these 2 abilities, and I like how they don't really work well together. I know it's really weird. You would want a hero ability to like synergize with itself, but it almost feels like this one hero is 2 heroes, where I can go an Earth Fatigue build, or I can do like a Lightning Aggro build, maybe even a different sideboard plan, kind of like how you have Boost Dash and Pistol Dash doing completely different things.
That would be like the dream. That would be great if I could just make something that's similar to that.
I think that's what this is going for, right? That's how I see what I see when I see this hero. I like this design, Han.
I love Dash so much. I just accidentally made a sideboard hero. Yep.
Did you design any cards to go with Casper?
Oh yeah, you asked for it and I delivered. And I not only made 1 card, I made 2 cards to go with it, Casper. First is a weapon, because you gotta have a shiny new weapon to go with to replace Rosetta Thorn.
Is it strong like Rosetta Thorn?
Hell no, because I want to not deal with it. I called it Frontier's Edge, and it's an elemental runeblade sword. That's 2-handed. It's a once per turn action. You pay 2 resources to attack. If an earth card is in your pitch zone, Frontier's Edge gains +2 attack. And if a lightning card is in your pitch zone, Frontier's Edge gains go again. And it has a base attack of 2.
It's funny, all the lightning cards like give you go again and give you action points. The theme here seems to be that when you're pitching these elemental cards, you get to see their benefit anyway. It's just like your deck being full of like Earth and Lightning, you like kind of like naturally get the benefit of Earth and Lightning, even if you're not really playing those cards too much. That's kind of interesting.
And you know what, this at the risk of sounding like, well, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, I don't care. So a build I'm thinking of for this hero is like, what if you just were to run only blue like Earth and Lightning cards, and you just play generics anyways. So you play generics, and then this weapon could either be a finisher if you pitch an Earth card, or a starter if you pitch a Lightning card.
Well, 4 is hardly a finisher, but
It's still an annoying breakpoint.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, four on a weapon as a breakpoint is pretty strong.
4 for 2 is not bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like Romping Club
Yeah.
with the added benefit of maybe having go again sometimes.
Right. And if you get tricky with it, like if you have red Earth and blue Lightning, you could pitch both and kind of stack them so that you have 2 resources left over and have 4 go again.
Yeah.
On a weapon.
I didn't even consider that. I considered this as like the both activate or both triggers to be when you play the specialization I made, but
Well, they're static abilities, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't care when it's pitched.
Or the triggers,
Which
yeah.
I like. I like static abilities. Anothos is a very interesting weapon for just that reason.
Yeah.
You know, if you like swing for 4 with Anothos and then you pay, or you pitch another card for
Pummel.
AB.
Oh, that was my favorite.
No, not even Pummel. Even if you just pitch to AB because there's 2 cards with CMC3 or greater in your pitch zone, now it's 6. And so it's just interesting mechanic like that I really enjoy.
Got to learn that against John Zapata because that Icelander was a menace. But it still works with Pummel because if I pitch for Pummel and pitch another one...
I know this for 10.
Yep. Oh, that's the best pump.
Rosetta Thorn is always that combo chain ender. And yeah, Chain can give his weapon go again sometimes with his hero ability. Being able to do this as Briar, just throw a sword in the middle of your combat chain and then keep going. Like, that sounds kind of fun.
And
I want more.
yeah. Give me a second. I'm
Gonna
cooking.
drink water,
I made Crackling Grave as a specialization for Casper. It is an elemental runeblade attack action that costs 3 resources. It is an earth and or lightning fusion. If Crackling Grave was fused with an earth card, it gains whenever this deals damage to an opposing hero, put target card from your graveyard to your hand. And if Crackling Grave was fused with a lightning card, it gains go again.
So if he deals any damage, you get to put something from your graveyard to hand. That's even better than like drawing a card on hit.
Joel said it felt really weak for 3
Well,
for 4
hold on.
go again.
I can't read. That's the problem. I'm a Magic player. I'm sure you know this.
And I purposely made it a 3 for 4 because I want it to be low rate unless you line this up. I want this on hit to be devastating because also if you think about the ability, you're fusing both, so you have both the Earth Fuse ability and a Lightning Fuse ability. So you pay 1 resource for a Lightning ability. This card attack or deals damage twice, potentially netting you 2 cards.
Oh.
Okay, so like if you pitch the lightning.
Correct.
Okay. And then you'd probably still have a card in hand after this though, because you're fusing with the earth. It's one of those cards that's a lot better with Pulse of Candlehold. That's one thing I like about this deck is it's just having the earth and lightning makes Pulse of Candlehold like such an asset.
I'm an aggro player at heart. I want like a splashy attack.
Yeah, like you want your Goblin Chain Whirlers, you want your...
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you want your Ragavans, things like that. That makes sense.
It can't be used with Lightning Press. You'd have to pummel it.
It works with Pummel.
It can
This is
be
a good
pummeled.
5-card hand.
So you could... Because it says target card. Oh, but it has to hit, though. Never mind.
It's to deal damage.
Yeah, I was thinking you could discard a card from your hand, pay 1 to... Or discard a card from your hand, and then get a pummel to your hand, and then pummel this. But I don't think there's a world where it works that way.
No, if you'd use like Bramble Spark, so you pitch a blue... No, you play Bramble Spark to fuse with Earth. Pitch some blue to play this, fuse with the Earth and Lightning cards in your hand. So that's a 5-card hand. But now you have an Earth and Lightning in your hand. You could even pitch the Lightning card in order to use the Lightning ability for Casper in order to have an extra damage looming at the back end on the on hit. But if they don't block the Arcane, then you get to add Pummel to your hand.
Oh my word. Yeah.
And then pitch the Earth card or maybe the remaining mana from the Lightning card you pitched in order to use the Pummel. And then you deal a bunch of damage. That would be a total of 11 if you use Bramble Spark and Pummel. And then...
Plus the damage from your hero ability, so you'd get 2 cards back to hand.
After the Pummel, yeah.
I'm so glad you guys talked me into creating this hero.
This is absurd. I really like it.
a lot of fun with
But it's so
this.
greedy, right? You have to have like a 5-card hand to do these combos that
This
we're
is like
talking about.
mid-game and like a mid-game play and like nowhere else. This is how you take back tempo. And I think every other time it's like a block 3 or really good pitch.
If either those Earth or Lightning cards were attack reactions that worked with this card, then it would get even more devastating. Lightning Press doesn't work with this, though. It has to be cost 1 or less, I think.
Yeah.
And there aren't any like Earth attack reactions, but maybe if we somewhere in the future. I like this card. I think it's balanced. For a specialization, I think it's okay. It's not a legendary spec.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Vincent, right, in the contrast with her and Chain, she was a lot slower than Chain and still has a lot of disruption. So maybe Runeblades are moving more in this direction of larger attacks with some arcane, with some on hits. Mm-hmm. So if this is the way that Runeblades are going, I think this really embodies like the... what's the word where you're like tough, starts with an R.
Resilient.
Resilient, yeah. So this is emblematic of how resilient Earth can be, but also how aggressive lightning can be. And I think the minigame of controlling like what card you pitch, how you set up this card in particular, and maybe some of your other explosive turns are what make Runeblade great, and are, I think, is what was missing from Briar's design, instead of like rearranging your hand on the table for 20 damage.
One other notable thing about this card is it pulls stuff from your graveyard to your hand, which can be a really big pool of cards. Like, imagine all the options you have late game, where when this connects, you can grab the best card from your graveyard to your hand. Except the hero ability is also taking cards from the graveyard to the bottom of your library, potentially lowering the pool of cards that are there. So you might find that while your best cards have been tucked into the bottom of your library because of the hero ability, your specialization now has limited options to grab from.
So you have to be really deliberate when you're using the hero ability and like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could even say like with this ability, you bring back a defense reaction to your hand, arsenal that card, and then all your attacks go in your deck, and you kind of separate it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this design a lot. It makes me really excited to play the next Runeblade if it looks anything like this.
I'd probably play it even if it didn't.
I think Crackling Gray was like the card I had like the most vision for. You know, because like I was talking about how I wanted to make another hero that's this little different flavor, because we got Prism again. Like Prism's cool, people like Prism, you know, but like I want like a different look. I want a different feel, you know.
Yeah.
And like Crackling Grave was like the exact kind of like character I was thinking of. It'll be like, you know, like a thorn trap, and then like once you get in, and like it wraps around you and it just like electrocutes you.
Oh,
that's the image I was thinking of.
That's kind of cool.
Well, Han, thank you so much for sharing your designs. I think with that, we're going to move on to our Arsenal Zone. Our Arsenal Zone is the part of the podcast where we shout out cards that we've been thinking about lately. Maybe something we love, maybe a card we hate. Joel, why don't you start us off?
Okay. So for my card, this is a card that I never got to play ever, because Briar was so stuck on this particular design, and I didn't really feel like trying to make this card work. It's Stir the Wildwood. Obviously red would be better, but I'm looking at the blue mostly, because it's normally a 2 for 3 with the fusion, and it's a 3-block, blue 3 blocks. We love those. So it says Earth Fusion. If you have dealt arcane damage to an opposing hero this turn, Stir the Wildwood gets +2. And if it was fused, it gets another +2. So 2 separate instances of +2. Meaning, in the late game, if you're able to deal arcane damage in some way, when you play this card, it is effectively a 2 for 7, which is pretty nuts, if you ask me.
Especially as a blue 2 for 7.
Exactly.
Boy.
Exactly. And how many Earth Blues do you have at the end of the game as Briar?
A lot.
A lot. So if you're able to like stack like Rune Chants, or maybe pitch a Bramble Spark with this and have 2 instances of Arcane,
Oh yeah.
this card seems really tough to block out. And then any hit gives you an embodiment. You know, I just wish I got to play this card, and now I have to wait, you know, however many years for the next Briar to come out. Hopefully not in the same broken state that she was, but this is one of the main cards that I'm looking for in the next Runeblade, because it's such a cool design, and I think being rewarded for fusing is just a part of Tales of Aria as a whole that I was missing. I just wish there's more focus on that and less focus on these absurd lines with the card pool that we got in Tales.
I'm excited to play Tales of Aria for draft, to play commons like this. I know it's kind of silly, but I bet you could make a pretty cool Stir the Wildwoods like.
Oh,
deck.
for sure.
I mean, that'd probably be a really good episode to like, what would the next Tales of Aria looks like?
Hopefully nothing like the last one. Okay, that's my card. My terrible common. Fuzzy, how about your card?
All right, so at Nats, I had the most fun I've had in such a long time in Flesh and Blood, playing Team Sealed with my buddies,
Oh, God.
Joel and Clark. We had a team together, a Pitch It To Me podcast team, and I was able to go 5-0 in my games, and I think it's because I took all the good generics and hybrid cards into my deck and kind of maxed for Fuzzy a little bit. One of those cards was Plunge.
Oh, yeah. Plunge.
So I was playing Benji, and if I wanted to just throw damage that they have to block, I can play Red Plunge. It costs 1. It's an Assassin Ninja hybrid. It says, when this hits, your next dagger attack this turn gains +1. It has go again automatically, and it swings for 3 at red. 1 for 3, that's not bad, because I can pitch a blue 0, play Plunge, and then swing with both of my Kodachis. And they know I can swing with both of my Kodachis, so if they can throw a 3 block in front of my Plunge, then it's effectively blocking 4 damage for them. But I'm like, okay, I got a card out of your hand. Benji has this problem where if he only throws unblockable damage, then your opponent gets to throw like 4 or 5 card hands back at you, and that's not that fun because you only have 17 life. And Plunge allows you to throw damage, and your opponent has to block it, and then you get to follow up with, if this hits, by the way, your next dagger attack doesn't actually get +1, it gets +2 because of Benji's effect.
Oh.
So it's Plunge, and then your Kodachi for 3. That's a lot of damage from, it's like a 2-card 6 with an extra resource floating.
And if they're not going to block it anyways, then they're probably not going to block the 3-attack dagger.
Right. Lots of damage going in. And if they do block, you get to still attack with your daggers to chip in some damage.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you have Silken Gi, which I did during this limited run,
Oh my god.
Make it unblockable.
you can make this a 0 cost for 2 that gives your next dagger +1. And again, really more like +2 because of Benji's ability.
I'm so jealous.
So this card works really well with Silken Gi. It works well even if you don't play it with Silken Gi. It's a very nice card for my Benji deck. I would have the luxury of running 2 of them because it was either me or Clark that would run the plunges, and he let me have them. And Clark only won 4 games. I won 5. So maybe if he had the plunges, he would have had the undefeated run. Clark, if you're listening, thank you for letting me play with the plunges. I had a great run. Thank you.
How sweet.
So I brought a couple copies that I'm going to sign and give to you guys to commemorate my shout out today. And I'm going to have a third one that I'm going to sign and give to Clark at a later date. 1 for you and 1 for you.
Woohoo! Thanks, Fuzzy. This card's almost perfect because it's a 2 block and not a 3 block.
It would be pretty good as a 3 block. Han, do you have a shout out for us?
Oh yeah, I keep waffling. The last time I went the test run of our recording, I had another card. I'm sorry, Starstruck. I love you. I care about you, but I'm a mech player at heart, and I keep switching it at the last minute. So my shout out goes to Plasma Mainline today.
Ooh.
What the fuck is that?
It came out in Dynasty, and it is super crappy right now. But it is also really exciting because it comes in with 5 Steam counters. I forgot that Optical Monocle exists, and I think they also come with 5 Steam counters, but we're just going to ignore that for now. Plasma Mainline just basically gives you an extra Steam counter. You can move a Steam counter from it to another item that comes into play with a Steam counter. Or actually just any other item that comes into play. So imagine 3 Teklo Core turns.
Oh.
It's pretty good.
That's kind of interesting, actually.
Or a 4th pounder.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm just so excited about what you can do with this card in the next set.
Yeah, with the new item hero.
It's just like it's kind of weird right now because it doesn't do anything by itself. So you have to play items, and that's why it's not played right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm optimistic. I really want something to work with it. And this is a shout out for my hopes and dreams.
How much does it cost?
I think a 2. Let me double check.
Yep, 2.
Yep, 2 for 5 Steam counters. There is the requirement that the item has to have 2 or less resource costs, but there hasn't been anything else that costs more than that yet in the current list.
Also, with BIOS update, though, you can just boost this directly into play.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So that's what, 2 for, or 0 for 5. You get +3 on your next boost, or on your next attack, and then you get this in for free. It's kind of sick.
It's just so hard to run more than 4 items in a deck right now. And that's not...
Yeah, you want to block eventually, right?
Yeah, I tried running BIOS updates on my sideboard during ProQuest season. It was a block 3. That gets around Bolton sometimes.
Cool. I love Plasma Mainline. I think it's certainly a fun card that probably makes some kitchen table players really happy. Maybe depending on the items that we see in the future, we could see it get cracked open.
Oh, please, LSS.
Yeah, I feel like Mech has a lot of cards like that with just random effects that are just waiting to be exploited.
And your boys is right there waiting to jump on it.
Well, Han, thank you for recording with us. Thank you, Joel, for recording with me as well. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Pitch It To Me podcast is hosted by Fuzzy Delp, Clark Moore, and Joel Recinos. Our executive producer is Talon Stradley. Logistics coordinator, John Farkas. Music by Dillon Hulse. Logo by Han V. And sound mixing by Christopher Moore. Last but not least, we'd like to thank you, the listener. Thank you for tuning in. Please give us a follow on your favorite social media platform at Pitch It To Me podcast. Stay tuned for some outtakes.
It's kind of funny. Fusion is like not.
Not.
It's not like you're literally taking two cards and merging them. Like, wouldn't that be badass?
That would be kind of sweet.
Ooh, that sounds. I feel like there's gonna be some fuck up in there. Just.
Like, Fusion in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like Time Wizard and Baby Dragon makes 1,000-year-old dragon. But Fusion in like Flesh and Blood is like, I play an elemental card, fuse with my earth. It gets stronger, but this card's still here. It's still like available to me.
I don't play Runeblade, guys. You're supposed to take me on for the mech episode. Fuzzy called me like 2 hours before recording and telling me this is get in the car, we're going podcasting.